Hi everyone, it's William. After a few days interruption with the Grand Duke Dmitri Diary series, we have 1939 today. I am back in my own cozy living room in the U.S., a little north of Portland, and yeah, it's not exactly summer here. It's June 21st, but it's raining and about 15 degrees. I thought about recording outside today, but decided not to. So we have our recap from the last time. We had the last time from 1939. We had an entry that was mainly about how the British were courting the Soviets at that time, as indeed they were. This was written on June 3rd, 1939, so it may have been eventful in this effort on the part of the British to form an alliance with the Soviets. So that was primarily what that section of this letter, this long letter, just a reminder, we're doing a letter written by Konstantin Grunwald to Grand Duchess Maria. And Grunwald's prediction at that time was that Poland would fight no matter what. He was right about that. So what was going on? Well, in 1938, there had been the Munich, the Treaty of Munich, the Munich Pact. I'm not sure what it was called, where Hitler promised to behave himself from then on, but such was not looking like it would be the case. And so Neville Chamberlain, who declared peace in our time, was by now had his doubts. He wasn't a stupid man, although he was an appeaser. And yeah, so what I said was that, this is all important stuff. Even though Dmitri wasn't even mentioned in the last letter section, it's important stuff because he is about to be mentioned very much in this specific context. So Grunwald was laying the groundwork for this with Maria so that she could understand what her brother was doing and what his stance was. I'm back with my dogs, of course, and one of them has a chew toy, so if you hear that in the background, I hope it's not distracting for you. Our cast today, well, Dmitri and Stalin and a man by the name of Maisky, a very important man at this moment in time and with this group of people. So here we go. But can we look upon an Anglo-Soviet treaty with such a favorable eye? Should we rejoice in the urgent and sometimes even humiliating invitations that are being offered these days to the masters of the Kremlin? Grand Duke Dmitri is not of that opinion. He deplores the bellicose ardor on display in England. He deplores the rising prestige currently enjoyed by Stalin and his acolytes, in particular Mr. Maisky, who has been promoted to the status of a great man, praised by the entire aristocracy and all the ruling circles in the London salons. Sorry about the noises. I don't have a poltergeist, but I do have a Great Dane, as you know, who opens cupboard doors and then slams them shut again. Okay, where were we? In particular, Mr. Maisky, who has been promoted to the status of a great man, praised by the entire aristocracy and all the ruling circles in the London salons. I was told that at a reception at the Swedish legation, Maisky was surrounded by such a crowd of ministers and diplomats that it was impossible to get near him. The German ambassador found himself alone for several minutes until a charitable soul came and paid some attention to him. The Grand Duke fears that the conclusion of an Anglo-Franco-Soviet alliance would end up exasperating the Germans definitively and provoking the war that they are so hypocritically pretending to want to avoid. All right, the minute I sit down, they do this. Duke, come here. Duke, come here. We have just a kid in a hoodie going past on a skateboard. Okay. Crispin! So welcome back to the circus. Okay, so this was, the emigre dilemma. They didn't want to be anti-Russian, but it was hard for them to be anti-Russian and pro-Soviet at the same time. Dmitri had been pro-Russian to the extent that one could even say he was pro-Soviet, although he wanted that government to change, obviously. But now this is not the case anymore. He's anti-Soviet now. But that fades in importance to the fact that he was anti-war. So his main stance was that he was just flat out anti-war. So how he thought all of these issues were going to be resolved, I don't know, because this was wishful thinking that he shared with so many people, that as long as Germany was treated with kid gloves, Hitler would not go to war, which of course we know was simply not the case. Okay, so it's really necessary to say a bit about Ivan Mikhailovich Maisky, because he was an important person, not just in what was going on in England, but with relation to Dmitri himself. So, what am I going to do? Do I have something I can throw at the dog? Crispin! I've got one of his toys here. Maybe that will distract him. Okay, yeah, so Maisky. Ivan Mikhailovich, he was about 7 years older than Dmitri. He'd been born in the 1880s instead of in the 1890s. This was an assumed name that he had. He was actually of Polish-Jewish extraction. His father was a Polish Jew, but he himself had converted to Orthodoxy, not to Orthodox Judaism, but because he came from a very secular, agnostic Jewish family, but to Russian Orthodoxy. Before the revolution, obviously, that was not something one wanted to be anymore, a religious person at all. He was the ambassador to London from 1934 to 1942, and he started out as a Menshevik from this very intellectual family. And the Mensheviks were, they were Marxists, but they were reasonable people. They were mostly intellectuals. They didn't believe in forcing the issue. They were revolutionaries, but they weren't, they weren't the kind of revolutionaries that were going to go out and seek upheaval and bloodshed and chaos and that sort of thing. He was a very cosmopolitan person. He'd lived abroad before the revolution for many years. He'd lived in Germany, he'd lived in England, and in that respect he was quite well suited for this role of Soviet ambassador to London. He had lots of influential friends in London, like George Bernard Shaw and H.G. Wells. Again, intellectuals on the left. He was, and they all considered him, been known to be a moderate and open-minded person. He still was. When the revolution first occurred, he was invited, I think he was the Minister of Labor in the Provisional Government under Kerensky, and the Liberal government, and he was anti-Bolshevik. But initially he opposed the Bolsheviks during the Civil War, but at some point he switched sides during the Civil War, and he himself said that he was opting for the boldness and originality of the Bolsheviks over the virtue of the Mensheviks. So he knew what the Bolsheviks were doing was horrific. He knew that, but he chose that. And so in England itself, Chamberlain considered him a kind of sleazy, dishonest person. But he had some unusual friendships with Churchill and with Lord Beaverbrook, about whom we'll hear a great deal later, because Dmitri had kind of become a hanger-on with Lord Beaverbrook, who was also very strongly anti-war. Churchill, of course, was the opposite of anti-war. He wasn't an appeaser like Chamberlain. He was the one who was sounding the alarm bells and saying, look, Hitler is going to start a war, no matter what. And Maisky believed so too, and was aligned with Churchill, even though they weren't really friends. They were allies in that respect. Okay. He wanted a British alliance to prevent a German invasion of Poland. Now somebody knocking at the door. You know, I'm 10 minutes into this. I'm just not going to redo it. I'll pause for a minute. Duke! Okay, let's see. This meeting is described at the Swedish legation, where Maisky, we're being told how absolutely popular he was, and how all the British were courting him. So, you know, the people like Churchill, who foresaw a war coming, very much wanted this alliance with Soviet Russia, and I think Maisky wanted it as well. So, yeah, okay. So this scene took place at the Swedish legation, and Sweden, of course, was neutral, and the Swedish minister was a man named Björn Prytz, and the man who was left alone at that time while everybody flocked around Mr. Maisky was the German ambassador Herbert von Dirksen. And the main thing about Herbert von Dirksen is not that he was a fanatical Nazi, he wasn't, but that he was fanatically anti-Polish. You know, from what I read, he just wanted Poland to be completely wiped off the map, that there would be no more Poland at all. And so he would not have been particularly wanted by either Maisky or Churchill, or obviously the anti-war people, anybody. So that was the setting. And what does Grunwald tell us about Dmitri? He says that Dmitri is basically not. That he sees that this reception, this almost love fest that Maisky is getting everybody's fascinated by him in London, everybody's inviting him to all sorts of things, the nobility, the aristocrats, they all just find him such a fascinating person, and Dmitri thinks that this is humiliating for Russia. The dogs have me frazzled. It's humiliating, not for Russia, obviously. It's humiliating to see England and other countries kowtowing to the Soviets, and to, as Grunwald says, the masters of the Kremlin. So Grand Duke Dmitri is not of that opinion. He deplores the bellicose order on display in England. Yeah, he's anti-war, he's anti-Soviet. But we're going to find out some interesting things that on the surface kind of seem to contradict that a little as the letter goes on with relation to Dmitri. So next time we're going to switch from 1939 to 1915, been going back and forth, and I'm tempted to use the title for the next 1915 diary, which is the 10th of January 1915, to use the title Hollywood in Moscow, because Dmitri is going to finally get away from Usovo for a weekend, and he's going to plunge headfirst into the world of the demi-monde and the scene of the stage celebrities, actors and not actors, actresses in Hollywood. Actors were not his thing. So that will be fun. And I hope to see you next time, and I apologize very much. I just didn't have the heart to restart. Now all of a sudden we're finishing up and the dogs are lying down and they're calm. Well, not so much. Okay, goodbye until next time.